Hello and welcome to a Tea Time Scoutcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Seb.
My name is Andy.
Welcome back, Seb, and hello to a different Andy. Andy can't be with us, so we've subbed in another Andy, FPL _ Sonaldo, who appears on our other videos and posts great stuff on Twitter. Andy, welcome to your Scoutcast debut.
Thank you very much. It's a big privilege and honor, and I'm very excited to talk FPL with you guys today.
Well, to be honest, it's our privilege and honour because, as we discovered shortly a few minutes ago, because you're based in Seoul, it's actually 2:30 in the morning for you. So while it's tea time for us over here in the UK, you are doing absolutely sterling work by being awake at this time. It's well past my bedtime as a parent of many years. Seb, what is coming up on the show?
So we have a shorter one for you tonight, a briefer one, which I know, us being brief, how will we manage it? I don't know either. We have a quick recap of game week 14 so far. I guess we could touch on the one before as well, which has come and gone. Then we'll be looking at the Manchester clubs, both United and City, who top the season ticker. And then moving on to a look at mid-price mids. There may be a little bit of overlap there as well, but plenty of others to consider. We will look at the next four fixtures, as usual. We have the community team, Alex's team, which Joe has mostly been leading there for us and leading well, I believe.
Yeah, we've done well.
And then we have
week,
some differentials, which I totally didn't pick 13 seconds ago. And finally, our game week 15 teams.
Excellent. So, I mean, we've got a bit where we usually look at our game weeks so far, but no fancy pants graphics this time because we're still in the middle of the game week. So to sort of timestamp where we are, it's 5:30 on Thursday. We still have two matches to go in game week 14, but we're previewing game week 15. I did the captaincy video earlier today. It can get a bit confusing because we're sort of in the middle of a game week, yet talking about the next game week. So apologies if we get any fixtures muddled up. Well, rather if I do. But yeah, game week so far. At the moment, I'm on, I think, 60 points and a green arrow, only just a little green arrow. And that's mainly down to Connor Cody coming off my bench for Reece James. So I have Connor Cody to thank for that so far. But it could all change tonight. Got Kane and Fernandes. Not that one. I've got the Brentford one to go. Andy, how have you been doing in game week 14 so far?
It's a game week from hell, right? That's the term that the community is using.
Right, what's been going on then?
I mean, I think I'm on 45 points now, 45 points with 4 left. So I don't think it's over yet. It's meaningless right now. So hopefully I can minimize the damage and try to get a small green arrow possibly, but I'm not sure. I got Kane and Mbumo, Tony, and Ramsdale left.
Okay, so well, I don't know. That's pretty good actually. Each week, I get completely saved by Connor Cody coming off my bench or playing because no one owns him. But he sort of mitigates against Ramsdale or an Arsenal defender, and that's actually the weakest link in my side. No Arsenal defender because he's so heavily owned, Ramsdale. Seb, how has your game week 14 been going?
So I took a little drop in 13 from like 50 to 90k odd. Going a bit better this week on 59 so far with Son and Mbumo to go. I think that's it. And some points off the bench for James, I think, but 2 points or something. I don't really mind where I am right now. It's mid-game week, hopefully a green, but we'll see how that goes. I think there are probably people in better positions than me and some in worse, so I'll take it.
Well, I mean, my on live FPL, I'm listed as very template, and I've moved from moderately template to very template, and so if any movement will be like a Connor Cody or Armstrong for me in the past. If anyone's had, say, Watkins or Wilson or Pookie, these are other sort of just one player, just that one difference, that 5-6 extra points from that can give you the difference between a red and a green arrow. But it's really it's tough at the moment to make inroads, but we're getting there. Just before we move on to our first topic, there was I didn't really want to do rough with the smooths this week, but there was one I noticed. FPL God, I won't read out his comment about his moves this week. He took a -8. If anyone's seen this on Twitter, a -8. He removed Neil Maupay, who scored, which is rare. He took out Damari Gray, who scored, which is rare, and of course transferred out Diaz, who scored, which is also rare. He transferred out 3 very rare goals. And he brought in Jota, that was good, got a goal back there. Also brought in Alonso, that's a blank and a booking. And Locadia, who I don't think he got any minutes toward. No, I think they used up all their subs by then. I think Brighton had 10 players, so Locadia couldn't have come on, even if he wanted to there. So, yeah. Not so good. Just before also we move on to the first topic, welcome those who have joined us in the live chat. Welcome to Paul, Madassa, Matthew, Matt, David, James, AGP, and all the others, IBK, Naif, Doi, Coco, and all the others that have joined us. Thanks so much for joining us at tea time, or 2:30 if you're joining us from Seoul. I'm going to move on to the first topic. Manchester City club. Let's put it. I'll put the picture up. It's some Manchester United players, but it's Manchester City and United we're looking at really. We did the fixture too. We'll look at the fixtures a bit later. Man City and Manchester United are top. Man City have Watford, Wolves, Leeds, Newcastle, Manchester United, Crystal Palace, Norwich, Brentford, and Brighton. So, Andy, what's your state of play with Man City and Manchester United players at the moment? Who have you got? Who have you got your eye on?
Yeah, so in terms of City, I have Cancelo, of course, and I had Foden and transitioned him transferred him out for Gundogan. And what happened yesterday? He didn't play, right? I think he's maybe illness. I have no idea, to be honest. So that's unfortunate.
I mean, but I hope it's a minor illness. Sorry, I mean, as opposed to a major injury.
I think I'm hearing it's an illness, possibly. Okay. So who knows, right? But it's definitely a headache because it's just a transfer wasted, and we'll see what happens. But United, I don't have anybody right now.
Okay. Anyone you got your eye on? Because we're going to talk about Manchester United, and tentatively, are there any players that you think, I could get in, I might get in?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to go in debt, right, a little bit on this, because I have some stuff prepared. But
good stuff.
A little bit. I think it's hard to predict, to be honest. But I'm not so keen on Ronaldo. I don't think he may be a great option, but under Rangnick, I'm not sure he's the guy I would go for right now. I like Sancho. I think he's a decent punt here. But there's so much unknown right now.
Okay. And Seb, what's your City United contingent at the moment?
I have Cancelo, and I lost Foden for Jota, which was okay. I would like a City midfielder back. So would everyone, right? But we want to know which one it is.
Yeah.
And that's as much guesswork as skill, I think. And then I have no United, although with the wild card, I guess in theory, I would use it to load up on United ahead of those great fixtures. I wouldn't mind seeing a bit more from Rangnick. And obviously, the Man United situation with him is kind of bizarre. So he's quality in of himself. But he's there for 6 months. Then he's moving into like a consultancy role. So it's not even necessarily like technical director. He's consulting. So I don't quite know what that means. We don't know who the new then actual manager will come in. And even with all of that in the future taken into account, how quickly can he have an influence on this team? We've got a good example in Conte at Spurs at the moment. We saw some things he was trying immediately, and we did see an impact. But in an FPL sense, I'm not sure much has changed yet.
No.
So I want more time, and I don't have that much, if I'm honest.
Okay, yeah, we've had some community questions on this. So these are hopefully we're going to better answer some of these questions as we go through this topic. Units asks, is Sancho the next bandwagon? FPL winner 21-2, so very optimistic person. Is Sancho a good pick for the pressing managerial style from Rangnick? Internal error, who is the best Man City player to get in? And Pomodoro, are we all getting Ronaldo again? Waltzing Matilda says Bruno, Sancho, Ronaldo for our Christmas tree teams. I was about to say Christmas trees even, but Christmas teams. Mira, is Jesus worth considering at Christmas always? Manchester United. Let's go on to Manchester United first because I've got some stats here. And what I've done here, this is all matches because new manager, clean slate, so anyone could play in theory if they're fit. And this is minutes per expected goal involvement. We've got some other stats there as well, but it's Van der Beek, the guy that can never get any minutes. whenever he does, he takes his chances. But it's so low on the minutes. We want to see. It's such a small sample. He's a player I'm interested in potentially at 5.7. Could be great. Cavani, I was just reading, is back on the grass, coming back from injury, so he could be near, could fit the style, or might not fit the style. Cristiano Ronaldo, the consensus is he might not fit the style, but 27 shots inside the box, 8 starts though. And then you go down the list gradually. You've got Fernandes there, 38 chances created, that's a lot. And then you've got Sancho, who hasn't had, like Van der Beek, not a lot of minutes, but 11 chances created when he has been on the pitch, which has been good. And Mason Greenwood, great start, and most of his stats there are from the start. So 12 chances created, 17 shots inside the box, and 12 shots on target. Great. At the start of the season, he was in my team, but not anymore. Andy. Right, Manchester United. I don't know the way your team is set up, because a lot might depend on that. But who have you got your eye on? Who over the next 2 or 3 matches are you looking at? What are you looking at with Manchester United?
Yeah. Okay, so I have some notes down. If you could give me maybe a minute or two to run through it real quick, maybe it'll help the viewers. Okay. So what we know about Rangnick is everybody's talking about press, but the key word for me is transition. So he's admired for how quickly they get the ball from one side to the other. By the way, can you hear my sound is okay?
Yeah, it is. It's a tiny bit crackly, but okay. Very small amount of crackle.
Okay. All right. So hopefully it's okay. Anyway, so we know him as a philosopher. That's what he stresses. So there's 2 types of transition: defense to offense and offense to defense, obviously. Mm-hmm. And when they're defending, they minimize the transition by pressing super high. And when they're attacking, you minimize it by running fast. Okay. So you're following me, right?
Yeah, fast and aggressive players he likes.
Exactly. So in a 4-2-2-2, it's just one formation. There's obviously multiple formations that he uses, but I'm using this as an example. The 4-2-2-2 is just a manifestation of his philosophy. So it's like, in a bad term, byproduct of his philosophy, right? So for him, it's philosophy that comes first. And Eric Laurie, who's someone I really respect, says in a 4-2-2-2, the fullbacks own the entire flank because they don't have to pass. They just run up and down. Mm-hmm. And the mid strikers are in the central position. So everybody's squished into the middle, as you can tell. And they transition as a collective unit. So it's like super fast, right? So in the defensive transitions, the fullbacks are way up. So they can win the ball high. So I'll give you a prime example. Yeah. When United are pressing in a 4-man defense, let's say you have a Premier League 4-man defense such as Burnley, Luke Shaw runs, AWB runs, and Cavani and, for example, Greenwood. I'm going to take out Cristiano because Cavani fits the profile a little bit more. They're pinning the 2 center backs, right? So what do these center backs have to do to get the ball to their team? They either play the long ball, or they pass the ball to the midfield, right? This is where I think Bruno may become a very good option here, because the strikers are going to be pinned. This is, of course, one scenario, and the talisman in this transition off defensive play is going to be those two center midfielders who get the ball and then create everything from there. So that's that. Naturally, we would think that the 2 highest guys are probably the best to kind of, position wise, to be in the transition defense. Hopefully you're following me here.
Yeah, I'm in.
So yeah, to conclude, I think that, his philosophy precedes his tactics and strategies. So we have to watch who's going to play in these positions in this next 2 games. Okay. And it has to be either the 2 strikers or the 2 guys right behind him. That, it's very obvious, but I think that because of that, Bruno may become a better option than Cristiano moving down.
Okay. So does Ronaldo you just don't think he'll fit into this?
I think it's Ronaldo, right? He's a superstar. He's, it's going to be hard to bench him. I'm sure he'll play, maybe he'll get the occasional rest, but a couple of years ago, I think 2016 or something, Rangnick came out and said something about how he would never buy Cristiano at, I think it was Leipzig, right? And so it was a bold statement. I'm sure he's changed.
He said on that because of age. The reason he said
Ah.
that was he said like the money they'd cost and the age they were. He said he would never buy Messi or Ronaldo because they're too old for what they'd cost. And obviously Leipzig's philosophy and what Ranić has always worked with in the past is like your 23-year-olds who you can buy cheaper, young, and mold into something.
Okay. So he's possibly not keen on his age. Ronaldo's not doesn't the setup you've just described, Andy. It doesn't sound like Ronaldo is the best player for that. Either.
Who knows, right? Because he may just implement him as a guy who's just up there, and everybody else works harder and gets the ball to him.
Okay.
But historically speaking, he doesn't fit his profile as a philosopher and a coach.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with Fernandes, so for example, someone like me, I've got Kane in my team. In a 2 or 3 game weeks, I'll be looking to remove Kane. Other people may have Son in their team. They might be looking to remove Son. Or I might be looking to downgrade Ronaldo and upgrade a midfielder. So it's a big decision is coming up for me, and I suspect lots of other managers, what they do with their Spurs assets and Manchester United assets. And Fernandes would be a good option, I hope. Historically, he's been good. So where he plays in the system, I agree with you. I'm very interested. He could be very interested. Rashford and Sancho. Do you feel that there'll be a lot of rotation at the moment in those positions, those forward positions?
I would love to know Seb's opinion on this, but personally, I think Sancho is going to be a pretty decent option. I hope he becomes a great option. I'm afraid of Rashford just because of the substitutions and kind of the injury proneness. But also, I want to put out there that Van de Beek, maybe if he starts getting, I rate Van de Beek very highly, and so once he gets that, kind of locks up that central position alongside Bruno, he may become a cheap option as well.
Okay. He would. I mean, well, we'll come to midfielders in a bit, but he fits the bill. So yeah, Seb, what's your thoughts on Manchester United?
I mean, Andy's put that wonderfully. Thank you so much for that. I don't want to try and add to that too much. I guess from my point of view, as I kind of said a minute ago, I'm interested to see how he can then take what Andy said there, which is his philosophy behind his football, and actually implement it. Because what we've seen in the past is him doing it with, as I said, 23-year-olds and players who aren't Cristiano Ronaldo, aren't Bruno Fernandes, who don't have established styles. And when I say ego, I don't mean in a bad way. They legitimately have belief in themselves and a way of playing that's worked. And Ranić is obviously used to maybe helping a player find that, as opposed to working with something that's already established. We've seen Michael Carrick take charge of one league game, I think it is, where in theory Ranić wasn't involved, but of course he was. And we saw probably a bit more of Bruno was more central, maybe more of a 4-3-1-2-ish. I wonder if there'll be some sort of shift between what Andy was mentioning there with the 4-2-2-2 and something that accommodates like a Bruno, whether you can accommodate both Bruno and Ronaldo in a system that suits them both best. I'm not sure. Maybe we've seen that already when Solskjaer was there. I'd be interested in what Luke Shaw can do. I know he was very hot at the beginning of the season and maybe less so as time has gone on because United have been poor at the back and he's not put up the same attacking numbers. But as Andy said, if he's going to get the run of a flank, well, I know it's going to be him over Wan-Bissaka. Although, interestingly, we did already see in the first match, Wan-Bissaka trying to push further forward, trying to close down, as Andy said, and he kind of regressed from it. He sort of stopped doing it as the match went on.
Right.
And United were looking for longer balls in transition, getting it quickly forward, as Andy said, although it was against Chelsea. So, of course, they ceded a lot of possession. And as I mentioned before, I kind of want a bit of time to see how this plays out. And what does Ranić have? He has 1 day training with the team a week at the moment with the schedule. So I don't know, if I'm completely honest.
I'm interested in possibly getting a Manchester United defender, not on current evidence, a massive waste of money so far. But do either of you have any thoughts on Rangnick's style in terms of defence? Could I get some clean sheets if I went for David De Gea, for example, or I don't know, whoever, Luke Shaw maybe he could get assists. But in terms of actual clean sheets, does he have a track record of clean sheets? Either.
I'll happily hand over to Andy if you want, Andy.
I don't. I'm not too keen on the clean sheets because when you're playing this transition pressing game, your individual player, your assets have to be really good, and they have a lot of talent. Like for example, in the midfield, Pogba is going to really struggle. He's just not the type of player that fits into the system. If anything, Luke Shaw is the guy to go to because Luke Shaw is going to have all the freedom in the world on that left flank. He's going to be he's basically a winger when you're attacking, right?
Yeah.
Which is a case for most wing backs, but as a left back, playing that winger role is not only good defensively because you're defensively strong as a unit, but individually he gets the freedom to attack just like a Chilwell or a Reece James, right? So the potential is there for Luke Shaw, but as an owner since game week 1, I've been through a lot of heartache and pain.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
hopefully this fixture hopefully helps him out a little bit.
Yes, I'm another player interested in looking at. Before we move on to City, anything else to add around Manchester United?
I just wanted to say, I guess, obviously we've talked a bit about sort of the real footballing side, but from an FPL sense, these players need to fit into our team too. So I'm with Andy on enjoying Shaw, but we have a plethora of defensive options. Sure, Chelsea's fixtures get a bit tougher. They've got some blanks coming up potentially. So maybe there's an opportunity. But really, I think it's that midfielder we need. Whether it's Bruno or whether it's someone a bit cheaper, I think that's the spot we have in our squad, whether it's replacing a Foden or someone like that, or replacing a Son. So that's where I'm maybe looking. Even if it's not the best option in United's team, I think it might be the best FPL option. And for me, as I've said 3 times now, so sorry it's not that helpful, I maybe just want to try and get as much information as I can. Is it a Rashford? Is it a Sancho? Should I try and squeeze Bruno in? Is Van der Beek? You've got those numbers there, which are based on very few minutes, so I'd be careful with them.
Oh, yes,
but
definitely.
If he does solidify a role, we know we can play.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the reason I've highlighted it like this is because of this blank slate. And we are suddenly looking at players with hardly any minutes because who knows? And Van der Beek at 5.7. He's going to fit in nicely. I mean, we've seen the ownership of, say, Jota, who is, a couple of million more, but nevertheless great value. And over the last 2 weeks, I mean, I think when I got him in game week 4, he was not very well owned, and he didn't really do much for me. But now he's just completely template. I mean, I don't get anything else from him. I mean, if I didn't have him, I would lose out massively. But yeah, he's like a non-player now for me. He's like 90% owned around my rank, which is But so yeah, we're looking at these differentials. They're not highly owned, and they could be very lucrative. Should we move on to City? Anything else to add about Manchester United?
Joe, if you don't mind, just to echo Seb's point, I did say a lot about tactics and philosophy, and in some ways try to make some predictions here and there, but honestly, we don't know yet. And we just really have to watch the next 2 games and possibly more because, as Seb said, he needs more time to implement its colors. And so it'll be fun to watch them play today and kind of keep a keen eye on who's playing what positions. Again, the emphasis I want to make is that his philosophy precedes his formations, tactics, this and that. So whatever formation they play, you're going to keep seeing these transition and pressing, advantages shown in his system.
Okay.
Realistically, his impact could be long-term, couldn't it? I mean, he's going to go upstairs for a couple of years if they get the right manager in next. And they've got a bit of a hodgepodge of a team in the background because there's still some of Solskjaer's, there's still Mike Phelan's still there. But realistically, this is maybe the first real step they've taken in a long time to building a sensible footballing structure at the club. Hopefully.
Okay, let's move on to Man City. So I've got some stats here. Once again, I've done the same thing. This is all matches and minutes per expected goal involvement for overall matches. So this shows that if they get the minutes, these are the ones that are heavily involved, or expected to be heavily involved, rather, I should say. We've got Mahrez at top. So if he's on the pitch, he's expected to be involved in attacking returns. Gundogan, this is why so many people got Gundogan in. Sterling is there, quite high. Foden, we can see lots of people still have Foden in their sides, even though we're not sure when he's going to be back. Jesus, winger, striker, don't know what he is, but he's getting some returns, 6 assists, a couple of goals. Grealish, we don't know yet. I don't think he's really found a role. Perhaps he has found his role, and it's not a role that we should be considering with the FPL, but nevertheless, He's there. And Bernardo Silva. I saw quite a good tweet from Andy, another Andy, Let's Talk FPL Andy, and he was saying, is Bernardo Silva the Man City midfielder we should have been getting all along? And I know from people in my mini leagues and things who've got Bernardo Silva, they've been doing great. They've been doing great with him. So, and he scored again. But the stats aren't as good as some of the other options. Nevertheless, 14 shots inside the box so far this season, which is more than I would have expected from him. So let's start with you this time, Seb. What's your mind everyone again of your City? You've got Cancelo, and that's it for Man City. Anyone else?
Yeah, I did have Foden, moved him onto Jota, and I mean, I guess I'd probably go Gundogan out of them without any further explanation. Although it depends on Foden's role, and I think that's the question here. And I'd love to hear from Andy in a sec as well. I'll shut up and ask him again because his analysis a second ago was lovely. But I think it really depends on who's going to play and where. You know, Gundogan, if he was ill, this maybe doesn't help us know whether it's him or Bernardo when KDB is back. I think their best midfield three is KDB, Rodri, and Bernardo, with Bernardo on that left-hand side. But that then assumes that Grealish is on the left and Foden is at false nine, whatever you want to call him, because we've heard Guardiola talk about wanting that left-footed option on the left. And if Cancelo's at left-back, which he is and is doing very well there, he probably needs Bernardo on the left mid role. But then if Foden is out on the left, maybe Gundogan comes in, and you can see how I'm going to go around in a circle here. So I would love to throw this over to Andy. Realistically, for me, if I can solve that, I probably know who I'm going to pick. But at the moment, I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, you probably on our Zoom call, you might have seen my image. It might have gone. I'm just doing that to save a bit of battery space there.
Okay.
So yeah, Andy.
Okay. Yeah. So I did another little breakdown here. If you can bear with me, and I need to shout out FPL Teacher on Twitter, who is such a knowledgeable guy, and he helped me out here. Okay, so I can talk about the potential upside here. I have Cancelo, by the way, and Gundogan, and I can talk about the potential downside of these three or four or five players of City that we're considering. But I'm going to try to give you the mean, the average, right? Because in the end, it's really hard to predict where the points are going to come from, just because City, really they score a lot, but they score in such spread it out, Excel sheets or points that you don't, KDB might score, Jesus might score, this guy might score, that guy might score, right? So why I was so high up on Gundogan and brought him in for Foden is since game week 9, when I watched the United game, he was playing in this like central role with KDB, and that's when I started watching him make those, piercing runs and positional plays that we thought of last year, where he was dominating those half spaces, right? And so, okay, there's some signs here, and then after that, he's been playing great, right? And last game week, he scored as well. And so I was very excited to watch him play this game week, but obviously due to the illness, we have not enough eye test evidence. Therefore, what I'm going to try to do here is project their points and not predict their points. So okay. When you predict, you're predicting events, and when you're projecting a certain number of events are inevitable. So I don't know if you're following me, but
no, I am. Yeah.
There's caveats to it. Okay. The caveats to this is I'm intentionally overlooking a lot of things for simplicity, such as assists and this and that, because then it just gets too complex, right? So what I did was look at the returns of City players in the December crunch period in the 2019-20 seasons, which was before the pandemic season. And in that 19-20 kind of from November 30 to the end of December crunch, there was 7 games that I looked at. And in those 7 games, there was, over the period of a month, there were 17 goals in 7 games, which is 2.5 goals per game. And there were 9 different scorers. And the highest scorer was KDB with 4 goals, Sterling with 3 goals, and Jesus with 3 goals, which again proves my point that it's spread out. Last year as well, they had 14 goals in this period. I think there was a short break in the because of COVID or something. So I went up to January, but again, analyzed 8 games and there was only 14 goals. So I'm going to use this 19-20 example. So the projection here is that the most prolific goal scorer is going to score 4 goals in 7 games. And this is somewhat what you can expect, unless one dude just goes crazy, right? And so the best case scenario here is that one guy out of the guys we pick between Sterling, Gundo, Foden, Bilva, Jesus is going to score once every 2 games. And our standard for Liverpool, for example, is super high, right? Because Salah is scoring every week. So to conclude, over the next 7 games, if Cities were to score 17 goals and you split that between 4 or 5 players that we're trying to decide between, you're expecting the guy to score most to have 3 or 4 goals in an average case scenario, assuming that it splits evenly. I'm going on a tandem here. So over the 7 games, you would expect 30 points, which is really so-so for that price point. So this is the benchmark of a City mid. And the question can be reversed to ask you, at 8.1 million, if we're expecting and projecting Foden to score 30 points over 7 game weeks, is it worth it, or is it worth it to save $1 million and go a little bit lower and go to Gundo or Silva? Because to be honest with you, it's hard to really decide who the guy is, right? So that's kind of the premise and the conclusion I came to. Again, super simple, but hope it helps. Yep.
Yeah, no, I don't have a City midfielder. I feel I ought to. And I can get one in soon. But yeah, it's really tricky. Gundogan, Foden or Silva are top of my lists, but deciding which one. Seb, what about you? Do you have a particular preference?
I mean, I think Andy's put that lovely again. Yeah. But realistically, my takeaway from that is I want to go for best bang for buck then. And it feels very much like trying to grab a slice of the pie, which I can't possibly get all of. So I need to be satisfied with just a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
And maybe that's where value comes in. Yeah. I think we have hopes of a KDB of old coming back, and then there's a real option. And maybe hopes that Foden, if he plays a little more central, could maybe be that option. But realistically, maybe both those things don't happen. And so then I am probably going for, like I said, Gundogan, who's got the combination of the good stats you can see on the screen there and $1 million or so cheaper than Foden. And then it's maybe just a shootout between him and Bernardo. And that's maybe where I want to know, who do we think is a bit more nailed? But if you're making this choice for, let's say, the next 8 game weeks, it doesn't matter what happens next week. It matters what happens over the course of those 8 weeks.
I would like to double. I mean, about this time last year, I think I doubled up on the City defence. Diaz and Stones, I think it was then, and I think in the previous year or around about the same time, I've also dabbled in Ederson as well, and that really paid off for me. Either of you considering a defensive double up, assuming Cancelo is nailed on in your team? Who? Any thoughts of a Diaz and Ederson, a Stones, a Walker?
Really? I mean, I guess I'd go Diaz probably. Obviously, before the rotation, before the goal, evens out nicely. But I'm probably more attracted to, I want Trent. I want probably still even one of the Chelsea players until they've got tougher fixtures, blanks, but we can solve that later. But even then, my differential later, there's potentially Spurs options. We talked about Luke Shaw. I know that's stretching it a bit, but I may even look there before I doubled up on City defence. I know a lot have gone with that though, so it's not out the window at all. But I may go, say, a double Liverpool, a double Chelsea, with then say a City defender and a City mid, something like that.
Yeah, I'm up in the air. I think I said at the start with my particular team, and I think other people will be in this situation. It all depends on the end of Spurs' very good run of fixtures and what we do with the Son and Kane money if we indeed want to hop off those, because it frees up a hell of a lot of money and it opens up a whole bunch of opportunities for these Manchester players. And I say that loosely. People in City fans and United fans will hate me for lumping them all together, but it just so happens that these two clubs have the best fixtures coming up, and we know that they can be very lucrative FPL options. But yeah,
one thing I wanted to throw in that occurred to me. When on the pitch, Mahrez is on penalties, but we kind of assume he's not first choice, and he can only play in one position, really, whereas a lot of the others have a couple of roles they can play in this team. So does that maybe edge anyone towards Gundogan if we think he's next in line on penalties?
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, I don't know the extent. We'll find out tomorrow. I say we'll find out tomorrow in the press conference. We probably won't, but we might get some idea of whether he's ill or injured or whether he's coming back or not coming back. But yeah, my initial thought is I want one of these 7.3 guys. Bernardo Silva, it strikes me whenever Pep talks, it's Cancelo and Silva are the one. They're just the glue players for him. They're the ones that play every week.
I think he can play. He can play obviously on the right. He can play right mid, right like centre mid, left centre mid.
Yeah.
And I guess at a stretch at 9, but there's probably a few people ahead of him there. Gundogan, I think he has played in the 9 role, but he's probably looking at midfield at the moment. Foden is left and up front. So I wonder if Bernardo Silva has the most opportunity to be in the team.
Yes.
And I think he might have the most 90s so far, maybe.
Well, in the stats we've got up here, in terms of starts, if you were to filter it by starts, Silva's top, 13.
Oh, lovely, thank you.
Jesus, 11. Gundogan, 9. Not too shabby. Grealish, 9 as well. These are just attacking stats as well. We all know that Cancelo is nailed on as well in defence. So if
Joe, can I add two quick points here?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm looking at the chat right now, and shout out Joshua Bloom, who's my college roommate. But before this game week started, or when game week 13 ended, one thing I was looking to do was a double up on Silva and Gundogan, and I ultimately decided not to do it. But the reason here was because I individually, when you look at these assets, they're great assets, right? But there's this thing called the theory of abundance. Again, I'm getting ridiculous here, but basically, theory of abundance is if one team is scoring an absurd amount of goals compared to other teams, it may be good to get more than one slice of the pie, right? You want to get 2 slices of the pie, and you try to predict which 2 are gonna score the most. Ultimately, I decided against it because I thought there were better individual assets there. But when I guess the viewers or FPL managers are trying to double up, it's good to see these assets as individuals too. But you should also combine that with how many goals are these teams actually scoring when you're thinking about their attacking assets. I think that's very important for me. And then on the note of the double up defense, if you have Diaz and Cancelo, I think it's a good differential moving forward. And one more shout out, last one, FPL Bruno, who's my partner in crime on Twitter, just mentioned Laporte. And I had Laporte for a while as well. And he may be a cheaper alternative because it looks like Pep likes that left-footed center back. And Stones is kind of out of the picture a little bit right now. If anything, Stones and Diaz are getting more rotated, and Laporte seems to be kind of, in that left center back position. For that price point, he may be the guy you want to double up with too. Yeah.
I think that's a really fair point. I guess to go with your theory of abundance, defense is maybe the place to look, only because we have those 5 midfield slots. And if I had a 6th, maybe Gundogan and Bernardo is a lovely way to spend it. But if we think we've got Salah, we've got Jota, we've maybe got our cheaper option and Boomer, whoever it is, I wonder if just the opportunity cost of going for double City in there takes me away from like a Jota. But I love that. That's really nice thinking.
Yeah, it's lots up in the air for me at the moment, but it's nice that there's so many options as well. I mean, we've all rattled off a whole bunch of names. We can only have 3 City assets, and we could have a triple up. There is that potential there if we use our Son and Kane money wisely. I want to spread it around. You could do something like, as you were suggesting, Andy, getting Gundogan, Silva as well, or you can have Laporte, Cancelo, and Foden. I mean, these are all possibilities.
I do wonder if Jesus could be shrewd just while people are looking for strikers. Yeah. I know his returns haven't been that great recently, but he's got decent minutes under his belt and he's involved.
He's got 8. He's got 8 returns, 11 starts. I mean, once again, I do not rule him out at all as a Kane owner, because it comes back to that point Andy was making about who scores, how many goals are they going to score? Well, a lot. It's like with Liverpool. Why have myself and so many other managers got Salah, Alexander-Arnold and Jota? Because there's so many goals being scored. They're all going to get returns, and they can all get them in the same match quite easily.
Seb, can I ask, while we're on this double defense, because I also don't like Alonso right now, and I have him. You're not a big fan of Alonso?
I mean, as a fantasy asset, we know his pedigree. I don't have him myself simply because getting there wasn't viable. Okay. And I think, in FPL terms, we know, while Chilwell's out, he's going to get minutes and he's probably going to get points. I thought in terms of real performance the other day, he was pretty poor.
Yeah.
But he's kind of been that for most of his Chelsea career, right? He's often the player that Chelsea fans wish wasn't in the team, but from an FPL perspective, we love him. My current Chelsea double up is James and Rudiger, and I'm satisfied with that. If I was wildcarding now, maybe I would go for two wing backs, but I don't see a reason to turn Rudiger into like an Alonso when I've got other things I can deal with.
Got you.
And even though you didn't ask me, but my opinion of it is I don't like to double up too much unless it's something like Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Because as we saw against Watford, everyone thinks they're going to get a Chelsea clean sheet, and they don't. And it's not happening with City as well. So that's why you want the attacking players. So I'm not massively keen on it, but if there's a lot of clean sheets to be had, or there's two players, two usually wing backs or full backs who are getting attacking returns as well, I do like to go for that. But yeah, I have my reservations about Alonso as well. And I mean, basically he's playing there because they haven't got anyone else, and that doesn't feel.
As an Alonso and Reece owner, you would suggest to just hold on to Alonso, right? Sorry to go on a tandem here.
No, I don't know. I mean, it all depends because we don't know whether James is going to come back, and we don't know how long he's out injured for. He could be he could be back this weekend. But yeah, if Chelsea do get clean sheets, Alonso will get it. He is the only one who can play there, but he might have reduced minutes occasionally. But it doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. I think I probably prefer Rudiger myself. Rudiger and James.
If I could pick any of them right now and assume fitness, I probably would get James and Alonso. But I'm often a big advocate of just chilling out a little bit with this stuff. You know, if you've got Rudiger and James like me, or you've got James and I don't know, Trent and Robertson, you don't need to juggle them around too much when you can probably get a better EV from like using your transfers on midfield.
Yeah, I also imagine, I mean, looking at our teams, there surely must be a bigger problem. I mean, the luxury move of transferring Alonso out. If you've got Alonso, just stick with him because he's going to play.
What about you, Andy?
What do you mean? What am I going to do?
Or you've asked us what we would do with our double Chelsea defense, or what are you doing? Or
I was just very disappointed with Alonso's performance yesterday. I just thought it was a little bit worrying. You know, I granted he could have got 2 assists. He passed to assist twice, and he's in these positions and this and that. But you could see the difference between him and Chilwell. So as an early Chilwell owner and someone who enjoyed his points, I miss him already.
Okay.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like we said, I think in real life performances, Chelsea fans do not enjoy Alonso. We just love him in FPL because of the attacking returns he brings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just got him in my Sky team. This is my weekly mention of my Sky team, and immediately regretted it.
He's probably is he good for shots maybe in Sky?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's mainly just to tap into the Chelsea. The way the Sky game works is just that you everyone gets a wild card, and it's basically when they go off to the Club World Cup. So getting Chelsea assets now is good. And then you can remove them then for free. So shall we move on? Mid-price mids.
Yes.
I have a slight selfishness for this because I'm always interested in mid-price mids, and there's a lot of them. I've just got Gallagher in my team, and he's got me nothing so far last couple of weeks. Meanwhile, I've Rafinha. Lots of people have Rafinha still, and then there's Smith Rowe and Saka, and there's this guy, Bowen, who Seb will tell us maybe a bit later, or maybe soon. He's very, very low owned. I didn't know how low owned he was. Cheap fielders might be needed if we want to access some of these City and United assets. So we had some community questions on these mid-price mids. Wild Goose Chase, is it worth holding on to Trossard? Is another asset there. I watched the game last night as you should, as an Amazon Prime customer and a Brighton fan, and Trossard was amazing, but he didn't score, and I think that probably just sums him up. So Karen 14, who is the best sub 7 million midfielder for the next 4 to 6 game weeks? Hopefully we can answer that shortly. FPL Canyon is Mbomo, a hold for the next 2, Leeds and Watford, before moving out. Yes, lots of owners of him and Tony as well. So I've got some stats. Here they are. These are the midfield stats. So I've filtered this a bit. So this is all matches, minutes per expected goal involvement, Maximum price of 6.9. I think I've got them all there. But a minimum of 2 goals. So they've already shown some promise there. So I'm not interested in Trincao or whatever Wolves have got to show me. And so these are ones that have actually delivered and are starting. And Bowen is the top, 6.4. 2 goals, 4 assists, 14 shots on target, and 19 chances created. Look at those corners, 38. So he's more than Rafinha. And then Rafinha's second, 6.7. Now, we know his fixtures turn. So Seb might have something to say about that. But I enjoy having Rafinha in my team at the moment, certainly. Especially if he's going to score in the 90 whatever minute for a penalty that he's third choice for anyway. But anyway, 6 goals. And then Saka, Gallagher and Bomo. Fornals, 6 million. Interesting. Townsend at Everton still there. Trossard, Ward-Prowse, Maddison, who's going to be creeping up this table, I would imagine, if he carries on with his form. Smith Rowe, Cornet at Burnley, Benrahma's still there, and Jorginho, who on penalties, 5.8. For some people, the best player in the world over the last year. If you're an Italy fan, obviously. But yeah, Andy, what do you think? I mean, what's your mid-price midfielder setup at the moment? Who have you got, and who are you looking to get rid of, and who are you looking to get in?
Who do I have? I have Salah, Jota, Gundogan, Mbumo, and Brownhill. So
okay. Quite a few.
Bench fodder there. I'm looking to get rid of Mbumo. You know, he has decent fixtures for the next 2, so it's no rush. You know, the thing is, like, we're too, as FPL managers, we're, you know, emotional at times, and you know, Bowen's been frustrated, or not Bowen, Mbumo's been frustrating, to say the least, right? However, an asset that's starting and giving you, you know, solid 90 minutes at his price point is never a bad thing. It's like, you know, there's probably other burning holes that you have to take care of. If you don't have anything, then yeah, he becomes your burning hole. And I think he's about to become my you know, main guy I need to get rid of. And I'm super excited to bring in Bowen. I just think Bowen's gonna go on a tear. I know he's playing Man City this game week, right? But after that, I'm excited to bring him in. If anything, I think he's going to do better than Antonio. So that's the guy I'm going to go for. Yeah,
I'm an Antonio owner. I'm going to keep. But I think I've said for a number of weeks now, I wish Bowen was the one I had in my team, but I can't. And with West Ham's fixtures improving soon, it's going to be hard to remove Antonio. But I do not rule out a double up. In fact, Bowen has to be the top choice, but yes, as Seb was saying, his ownership like 3% or something, 2%.
Yeah, I think it's 3% or so.
What's that?
He was nearly. He's got Chelsea this week. Otherwise, he probably would have been my differential.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it's tough there. Seb, what about Rafinha? So I mean, should I keep? I mean, he's just a good player, isn't he? And Leeds, Bamford's going to be back soon. So even with the poor fixtures, should I just keep him?
I mean, I feel like for a long time it's maybe been "don't buy, don't sell." That old FPL saying. I wonder if the time to sell could be coming. Like, some of his returns have been fortunate. His numbers are still okay. They're not. We could see better. He scored 1 cross that was definitely a cross, 1 free kick that was definitely a cross, and he's 3rd or 4th in line for penalties.
Yeah.
Maybe in training he's trying to take them and he wants to be first choice. But on the information we have available, he is behind Bamford and Click, and Rodrigo took the last one when neither of them were on the pitch. So maybe we've got a little bit of luck there. And our fixtures after Brentford are really tough. Yes, Bamford's back. That doesn't necessarily mean Rafinha himself will get more returns. It means Leeds will be a better attacking outfit. But maybe it's Bamford, you know, getting those points. Sure, a few more assists for Rafinha, but then the harder fixtures, that probably balances out. For me personally, he may be the player I sacrifice for a City asset, or maybe for Bowen himself.
Yeah, I mean, you see the price there, 6.7 to Bowen 6.4. Bowen's price is going to go up. Rafinha's price is going to go down. Bowen's points, FPL returns, are going to go up because they're the fixtures. He's on everything. And well, he's not necessarily on everything. I think Fornals took some corners, but he is on a lot of corners. Creates. I mean, he's got points across the board there. He just seems to be involved. And I mean, I've sort of spoken about West Ham a bit, but I hadn't really watched them in detail until they played my team Brighton. But in terms of from an emotional point of view, I mean, so you see them taking on another team, you just go, well, it's a good counter attack. But when they're playing your team, and you see your team like Brighton were dominating possession, playing really well, and then West Ham just rocketed up there, engineered a set piece, got the corner, and it either resulted in a goal, as in with Souček's header, or nearly a goal, or there was a Antonio almost assisted for I think it was Fornals hit the bar, and chances, lots of chances from suddenly out of nowhere, and that obviously I knew that's sort of the way they play, but when they're doing it against your team, it almost feels unfair, but they engineer that, and
I think one thing
they're really good at it
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Joe. Just going to say that if Antonio does get a rest, which I don't know, I think he might end up getting just 60s rather than like a 90 off. So. But Jared Bowen probably is the replacement for him up front when that happens.
Yeah, he replaced him in Europe up front. So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, he's top of my shopping list, really. And Rafinha, I like my price points, and Rafinha to Bowen. It doesn't get better than that.
Someone in the chat did just mention that after the next 4 or 5, Rafinha's fixtures look good again. Completely agree. But that's 4 or 5 weeks. They're going to come quick, but that's a long time. We can get him back if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think money comes into it as well, because I mean the prices are going to change, and what are you talking about, like 0.2 or something? It doesn't matter if you're getting X number of points extra during that time. I think we just have to go with fixtures breed form. Hopefully, even though last time we were on there, form doesn't exist, but you know what I mean. Fixtures breed good performances, which create FPL points. Now I've got Gallagher in my team, as I said earlier. I'm new to Gallagher, and immediately I have noted he's playing really deep. Annoyingly so.
He is such a good one for like the old stats versus watching the matches question, because his stats are great. But it really depends on where he's playing. And I guess you probably need to have a bit more knowledge on Palace than just looking at where he sits on a table to be able to predict, as Andy was saying, going forward. And I don't know the answer. I've not owned him all season. I certainly wish I had done at points. I think he is probably the best Palace asset. Yeah. But I think you're going to see periods of no points and then periods of lots of points, depending on how they line up.
He was on, also with Milivojevic not there, he was on loads of set pieces. So if they were going to get an assist, if there was assist to be had, it was from him. But at the same time, most of the match he was quite deep. But it seems to be MacArthur is injured, so he's sort of fulfilling that role, a more defensive central midfield.
So do you mind if I add something real quick to the mid-price mids? I guess. Yeah, so earlier on when I was talking about Rangnick, I was talking about how in order, it's philosophy, 1, second strategy comes in, third tactics, and then production as in the results, right?
Yeah.
In FPL, we kind of make our decisions the reverse way, right? Production as in we look at underlying stats, and then maybe tactics, we look at heat maps, out of position, this and that, and then strategy, and then maybe lastly, we don't even look at philosophy, right? No. So why I'm saying this is in the old fixture versus form kind of debate, and especially for the mid-price midfielders, I kind of strongly believe that when it comes to fixtures, like fixture run, whether it's Spurs fixture right now or the upcoming West Ham fixtures, I strongly believe that you pick the guy that's the most productive. So highest XG, shots in the box, this and that, and no matter what, this guy will most likely win out. It's just a game of dice or numbers, right? Versus when you have a guy like Rafinha, and I'm going to add Maddison in here, their underlying stats are not always that great, right? Obviously they're going to have Spurs, moments of greatness, but relative to what we see in Bowen, they're not that great, but they're so talented. And so when it comes to players like this, I usually buy them based off form. So fixtures matter less for me. So Maddison's also someone that I'm keen on possibly getting into my team, because he just goes on these runs. But what do you guys think about Madison?
I'm just not looking at Leicester in particular. I think but I do agree at the moment because his ownership is so low, and yes, he has been, when he cares about the stats. Have you seen those post interviews? I think he corrected an interviewer who said, "Oh, you've had X number of assists this season." He corrected him. He said, "Oh no, I think you'll find that I've actually had." And he notes all these things down. He knows all of these things. He is going for all of these personal records. And
does he really?
Yeah. So he is fully aware of these things, and I like that for an FPL asset. So yeah, I mean, I don't rule him out. But as we can see with this list here, I mean, I've just filtered it by this, but you can filter it however you want, and you can add more names to this list. But there's so much choice in this category. I've never known it so productive. You talk about being productive, but and then there's Arsenal as well. Saka, if fit, I think he's a great asset. Smith Rowe, talk about productive. He always looks the best player on the pitch whenever Arsenal play. Well, depending on who they play. And we haven't even spoken about Cornet at Burnley, 6.1.
His returns are nuts so far from numbers he's put up.
But
that doesn't mean he couldn't continue, but we'd expect him to have to improve his underlying numbers to continue the rate he's at.
Yeah,
he's overperforming.
Yeah, it's so much choice at the moment, and for me, fixtures. But I do agree with that sort of productiveness and I guess the sort of explosive potential of someone like Maddison. And there's something about Raphinha, I quite like the way he keeps getting 8 to 9 points, but no more and no less. And I kind of quite like that. There's a nice reliability in that, which I quite like.
I mean, he's certainly talismanic for us. And to build on what Andy was saying, it's about having, I don't know, good means and motive, opportunity, all that. The fixtures are the opportunity, and then you actually need a player that is capable of taking the most of that opportunity. We see bad teams with good fixtures and we don't pay any attention. We see good teams with good fixtures, and that's when we want to get on board.
Okay,
go ahead.
No, you can't. Carry on. Sorry, Andy.
Just last point on Raphinha. I mean, his looking at this chart, his stats are pretty good, but Raphinha is just so talented that he's always a threat in every game. Whether you get a lot of chances or not, it doesn't matter. But the thing about Raphinha is more than fixtures for me, it's if the team improves, he becomes a tremendous asset. So that's why, we need Bamford to come back and it leads to show a little bit of more improvement. And then for me, it's Raphinha, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Let's have a quick look at the next 4 fixtures. We've already looked at who's at the top. It's the Manchester clubs. Liverpool, it doesn't really matter where Liverpool are in this, but anyway, Liverpool got great fixtures. So even more points. Wolves, Villa, Newcastle, and then Tottenham. So a great set of fixtures there. Brentford. So yeah, for those with Brentford assets, Leeds and Watford up next. Arguably to keep. I've got the Brentford goalkeeper somehow still, and I'm quite happy to keep him for this run. Anyway, he's got Manchester United and then Southampton in that next 4. But then further down, Wolves. So Cody owners like me, anyone else with Jimenez, etc. I think Seb, you've had Jimenez. Have you still got Jimenez in your team?
I've had Jimenez since game week 5
since he was born.
I quite like him. He's one of those players that just quietly ticks along with the numbers. When there's good fixtures, he does a good little job for a good price.
Yes,
I will probably be losing him very shortly, and I feel unfortunate not to have had a goal in the last couple, but he's done okay.
I mean, I've seen some fixture runs like this. The Wolves fixtures for game week 4 till now have been great, and then they just drop off that cliff. Liverpool, City, the worst you can get. Brighton, tricky defence. Chelsea, that's the worst set of fixtures you can get. I might be biased as a Brighton fan. Leeds fixtures turn, but as we said, there's a debate to be had around keeping Raphinha or not. Newcastle, their mini flurry of good fixtures about to come to an end. They've got Burnley next, then Leicester, Liverpool, City, bad. Norwich fixtures turn, so if you're a Pookie owner, start to think about a Pookie exit perhaps. But out of all of these teams here, the one I'm most interested in is Aston Villa, who appear to be very good now under Steven Gerrard, and Ollie Watkins is top of my Kane replacement list currently, not Ronaldo, because they got Leicester. There's goals in that. I'm not going to get him just yet, so I'll miss out on that. Liverpool, that's the bad one. Then once that's out of the way, game week 17, You've got Norwich and Burnley. So very, very tempted to get Watkins in game week 17 and see how we go with him. But yeah, looking at these fixtures before we move on, any general thoughts about teams here that we haven't mentioned? No, I've mentioned them all.
I mean, I think you've covered it. I don't want to repeat what you've said, so I will leave it to Andy if he's got any thoughts on it.
No, I like that Watkins pick. I like Jared's being very surprising. He's a great coach so far, and I like his positioning. When you think of Aston Villa, you have to think of them as I've mentioned this before, but you have to think of him as a light version of Liverpool in some ways with their three forwards, and especially Watkins is playing kind of that inside forward role. So he's eating up a lot of really good half spaces in position. So and plus he scored some decent goals. So I like him. I really like him as an option.
Okay. With these fixtures in mind, let's pick a differential each. I'll go first quickly. Jaden Sancho is mine. It's a real hit and hope. Hail Mary. He's for the dreamers, really. So 1 goal so far. Whoop-de-doo. 2.3% teams, 8.9. But what I'm thinking is that could be one to watch, as Andy was alluding to with our Manchester United chat. He could be a favourite of the new manager, and if he is, he has done well in the Bundesliga. So let's see. But we've had some success with picking differentials recently. This could be the moment it ends, but I do think Sancho could be one to invest in even from now. I think Manchester United fixtures turn. Could be one to go to, but I do stress it's one for the dreamers there. Andy, who is your differential?
No, I like Sancho. Sancho would be my number 2 differential, and number 1 if fit is Gundogan.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, we've spoken about him. Yeah, no, I can't argue with that, especially that. Seb, your differential that you've been slaving over for.
I was just checking Gundogan's ownership, 4.1%. That's crazy. Great shout. Yeah, nice. And for me, they're third on your ticker there. We've spoken about defenders a lot. It is the definition of a differential. I'd probably do it to double up with Trent rather than replace. But Andrew Robertson for me.
Okay.
A recency bias and 3 assists in 2 matches, but they've got some lovely fixtures. Salah's leaving. If you haven't got Jota, I think there's an opportunity there for you. It is the definition of a differential, but he's like 2% owned or something silly.
He's picking up the assists
there's a game
as well.
to be made.
Picking up the assists, and I mean, and Liverpool will be depleted, and so those places in our teams will be opening up in a few weeks' time. But in the meantime, if you don't have Jota, double up on Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. That's definitely worked for me in the past. Let's have a look at a community team. So we're managing a manager called Alex's team. He's a top 100 manager, but he's bowed out this season, but he created his team, so he didn't want it to sort of be left. So we've taken it on, and we're using it as a sort of a way of talking about transfers as well. We wildcarded game week 7, and we've had green arrows ever since, and rocketed from about 800k to we're now somewhere around the 120, 130k mark. So it's going well. We've got a few more players tonight. We've got Kane, Ramsdale, I think that's it. But we brought in good moves actually. Antonio and Saka were removed for Jota and Pukki, so that's worked out.
Just for people listening as well, Joe made these moves, so when he goes, "Oh, good moves," actually, he knows what he's done. He knows what he's done.
I made some good moves. I put it out to the committee. But the team. I mean, this. I'm going to look back on this wild card we did in game week 7, and even though it's not my team, This is what a wild card. I mean, it's just. And it's just trucked along this team, you can put, got full of the right price points in and out, and it's got the 1 or 2 differentials. So I'm really pleased with this. But nevertheless, I think we should save a transfer and get a bit more information. But if we were to make a move, perhaps Zaha could make way for Gundogan or Bernardo Silva.
So I'd be tempted to do that this week, but you say, maybe with injuries, illness, what have you, we can afford to hold on. we may need a bench for James.
Yeah.
I'd be tempted to start Tony over Zaha.
Yeah, we could do that as well. I mean, as I said, the bench is looking pretty good as well. Even Douglas Luiz got an assist for us this week from the bench. But so, yeah, I'm tempted to hold, and yeah, I agree. Perhaps Tony instead of Zaha for this one, or indeed instead of Livramento.
Andy, this is your chance to ruin our team. So what would you do?
Yeah.
No, I like the idea of rolling. I would roll too. If you had 2 transfers, I would make a fun move here and go Livramento to Ben Johnson. I think Ben Johnson is, luxury move, but could be a decent option with the West Ham fixtures, and looks like he's nailed his spot. And when Kufal does come back, he plays on the other side as well. So at 4.0, Ben Johnson, not a bad shot, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Livramento's in my side, so many of our sides. But yeah, I'm happily benching him at the moment, and I'm not particularly worried about that. And even the good fixtures, I'm thinking, well, I still think Southampton will concede here. It would be an upgrade by downgrading in a weird way. Let's have a look at our teams. So here's me for game week 15. So people will look at this immediately and say, you're playing Cody against Liverpool. I'm not going to play Cody. He's a Cody-shaped hole in this team. So I've got Fernandes, Reece James, or Antonio on the bench, whichever. Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, Cody-shaped hole, Salah, Jota, Rafinha, Gallagher. And up front, I've got my man Adam Armstrong and Kane, who's my vice-captain. Salah captain, obviously. And it's a 4-4-2. It could end up being a 3-4-3 with Antonio coming in for James. But Cody is my weakest link because Wolves fixtures jump off a cliff. So I'm a big fan of fixing the weakest link. And one thing that troubles me every week is I don't have an Arsenal defensive asset. Ramsdale is killing me so many weeks. I can't afford to move to Ramsdale. I'm a 0.1 or 2 short, but I can afford to move Cody to an Arsenal defender. And currently I've got my eye on Tomiyasu. And Tomiyasu, who is, as far as I can tell, is nailed on. He doesn't see, I think Callum Chambers may be his only backup, but he's completely nailed on. He's had all matches, he's had 7 goal attempts out of 10 starts, which is not bad for a defender. He's only 4.6, created 7 chances, 3 shots inside the box, and he's had an assist as well so far. So I could get the odd attacking return from him, and there's those lovely Arsenal clean sheet points. If for some reason he shoots up in price after people see this and think, I'll get him in, and I can't afford him, I'll just get Ben White, who's 4.4 for those clean sheets. Tavares at 4.3 interests me, but looking at the stats, with Tierney's there still lurking in his short sleeves in the middle of winter, and 10 chances created in his 8 starts. He's not to be ignored, and he could come back in. So Tavares could, I don't know. There's a question mark there, but for me, Tomiyasu just seems to have everything, and very lowly owned, but immaterial because it will help me cover that Arsenal defence. So yeah, my move. Andy, here's your team. Do you want to just quickly run through who you've got and a few flags and what you're planning to do?
Yeah, I am sure. I don't really have any plans right now. I have 2 free transfers and maybe 1.8 or 9 in the bank. Yeah, I need more information on James Gundogan, and as I mentioned before, my weak link is Hwang. He's Korean, but he's been awful. So I'll be the first to admit, and I want to get rid of him. And so I'm going to present a popular question to you guys, and it's Joshua King versus Dennis. And so I'm going to get one of those boys in, and I'm moving towards Joshua King most likely, but do you guys have some input here?
Yeah, Joshua King.
Yeah, sorry, Joe, did you want to go?
No, you go first.
Cool. I had a look at this earlier, and so assuming you don't need the 0.3, which I think is important to say because this could be the player you bench, and 0.3 could get you, maybe a defender that you couldn't otherwise afford and be a better net move.
Which is why I mentioned Ben Johnson as well.
That's absolutely fair enough. Actually, I hadn't thought of him. I think he's a nice option on the wildcard. He could be good. But with that set aside, I think it's quite clearly Josh King. So
Okay.
per 90, King has 0.64 non-penalty XG plus XA, whereas Dennis has 0.46. Dennis, however, has returned 1 goal or assist per 90 so far, and King 0.7. So Dennis is quite clearly overperforming, and fine, that could continue. But the numbers suggest that going forward, King is more likely to score or assist. King is on penalties, and he is notionally playing up front, although there's a bit of movement there, and we know, with Watford conceding possession, he may be dropping deep. Obviously, Dennis as well may well be going to AFCON, I believe. And then finally, there is the point to note about King's hat-trick he scored against, was it Everton, where he put up something like 2.1 XG, which is a lot of his underlying stats. If, though, we take that out the numbers, he still beats Dennis. It's a lot closer, but he still beats Dennis. So my only concern of, is he just riding on this one good performance? Arguably, no, he's not. So I would go with Josh King.
Yeah, and I can't be as detailed as that, but I like him. So I want him. No, he's on
Perfect breakdown.
While Saar is out, he's on penalties. We can't ignore penalties with a team with good fixtures coming up. And all of the reasons Seb's outlined, I do think he's more sustainable. He has pedigree in the Premier League. So I have great memories of Josh King hauls in the past with Bournemouth. With Dennis, I don't know. Is it sustainable? Is it unsustainable? Don't know. But if I can't, I've got Adam Armstrong. So my price point play, I'm looking at getting Josh King in a couple of weeks. But not yet, because the fixture's quite tough this weekend. I think if anyone can afford it, go for him. But if you can't, you can't go wrong with them. But I don't know if Dennis is going to play in AFCON though. I'm not sure whether he's actually definitely.
No, I'm not sure. It's worth finding out before you make the move though, if you want to hold them for a while.
Yeah, no. So, King. That's just penalties and all the reasons Seb gave as well. Seb, your team. Oh, sorry. Just before we move on, just for the podcast version, Andy, you've got a 4-4-2 as well so far. Ramsdale, Alexander-Arnold, James, Alonso, Cancelo, Salah captain, Jota, Gundogan, and Bomo, and then you've got Kane and Tony up front with Livramento, Hwang, and Brownhill, and Foster, the injured Foster, on the bench. Seb, your team. Who have you got? Who are you getting rid of? Are you going to make any moves?
I don't think I have already. These game weeks are coming too quickly. I think I've still got one to make.
Okay.
Because we're in the middle of a game week, aren't we? I've got one to make still, of course. So I have Sanchez in goal, as I have done all season. Trent, Cancelo, James, Rudiger. Salah captain, Son vice captain, Diogo Jota, Rafinha and Mbumo. And then I have Antonio up front at the moment. Ooh. But frankly, if I could play none of my forwards, I would. I've got Antonio, Jimenez and bench fodder Keenan Davis. I want to play Livramento instead. So I might try and make a forward transfer, but realistically, could be one of the City guys, or it could be a role. We'll see what a couple of days more information brings.
Okay, yeah, looking at that midfield, it does look quite good actually. It's all lined up there.
Yeah, I do. Just one thing to add as well. I do have that wild card, which we've been mentioning for weeks, and I probably should have used it to get Chelsea wing backs when that was a good idea. I think I have two opportunities really. Game week 16 with a bit of a Man United, Man City fixture swing.
Yes.
Or, and this is a bit more speculative, about game week 19. The last time we can use it is game week 20. So 19 or 20, because Chelsea go on a run of basically the other good teams in the division. Yeah. And then potentially, they definitely have those two blanks. The only thing to keep in mind, and someone more au fait with the fixtures schedule than me will be able to tell you on Twitter, but if I think they lose to Brentford, they may end up with a double in around about game week 19 or 20, something like that. No, it might be the new year actually. So in that case, you wouldn't wildcard to get rid of your Chelsea assets. But assuming that doesn't happen, and they have some tough fixtures and then blanks, I'm tempted to use the wildcard there. Everyone else can do it with free transfers, but I've got a wildcard to use, so those are my two options.
As I've got two free transfers this week. I only plan to use one, and I want two in game week 16. I'm not averse to a hit then. And so if that's any help to you as someone thinking of wildcarding, as someone who's hasn't got a wild card, I also am looking at game week 16 as a key pivotal game week of which to take advantage of fixture swings. And I think a hit may be worth it, but certainly two transfers are definitely going to get booked in. If I had a wild card, that's when I'd go for it, definitely. Have you Andy, have you still got your wild card left, by the way?
No, I'm so surprised, Seb, you have your wild card. Is your rank pretty good right now?
I was 90k at the end of last week, down from about 50.
Okay.
Because I just had that, I had the team the defense that everyone had finally wanted and they did nothing. Which is why I say realistically, I think I missed my best opportunity because my team has been pretty solid all the way. So it'd always been like, well, there's no problems to fix. And I kept nearly doing it, from a position of strength, but never quite did. The opportunity I would have loved is, the Chelsea wing backs. But hey, hindsight's brilliant, right? I should have just left that alone. So now I do feel like 16 is maybe the one for me. And hopefully, other people did brilliantly with their wild cards. So if I can hold on to top 100k and then use the wild card to set myself up for the second half of the season, maybe I can drag it in there.
Wow, that's amazing. I think you're the last one of the people I know that has a wild card. So hopefully you go on to use it and possibly win the game. So
thank you. See if I can't do the opposite, right? Take out all the players that do well. And I've spent this long building a good team with free transfers. I'll dismantle it now.
Okay, well, we have to leave you all now. I've got to go to the cinema shortly to see a hot new film called The Maltese Falcon with some new star called Humphrey Bogart in it. And so very much looking forward to that. And Andy, thanks so much for joining us. And Seb, so much for coming back again. I
just want to echo as well, Andy, you've been brilliant.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank
you so much. Appreciate
that's
it.
2 Andys now on here that are better than you. So I'll see you in like 3 months.
And Andy, there's a traditional farewell we always do. So I'll start. It's a goodbye from me.
A goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.